James Cameron jumps back into the director's chair for his final Terminator project, the true sequel to T2, a sequel that had a little surprise tucked into it that no one noticed. Let's check out the Universal Studios theme park attraction Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time. Hello friends and welcome back to Every Arnold Movie Ever, episode 23. In 1995, Universal Studios executives were looking for a new stunt show for their theme park. And even though T2 had been released 4 years prior, its cultural footprint was still fresh and Arnold was still a viable box office draw, having just come off the unqualified blockbuster hit True Lies and the qualified as much less successful but barely kind of sort of profitable tough sell high concept comedy Junior. I guess I could have just saved myself a bunch of words and said the Pregnant Arnold movie, but I'm a writer, I can't help myself, so you got all that. Now, to develop the idea, Universal tapped Gary Goddard, a theme park ride designer, and, it turns out, alleged garbage person who got Me Too'd. Yeesh. Universal knew a simple stunt show would never pass muster with James Cameron, so they came up with an idea to integrate filmed elements with live action. They developed the idea for a year and a half before taking it to the Terminator rights holders, which would be Carol Co. and Gale Ann Hurd, for their approval. They quickly agreed because money. Carol Co. was about to bankrupt themselves with Cutthroat Island, but that was actually the easy part. The last piece of the puzzle was approval from James Cameron himself. Since Cameron and Arnold made an agreement years prior to only make Terminator projects together, without Cameron, there was no Arnold, and therefore no show. When Cameron showed up for the meeting, credibly accused scumbag Goddard pitched him the idea, and for over 30 minutes Cameron said nothing. He just stared at the storyboards. And finally, in typical James Cameron fashion, he said, "I was fully prepared to come here and not like whatever it was that you were going to present. But this is really good. You got the characters right, you got the mythology, the whole idea of it is great." Then, in even typicaler James Cameron fashion, he turned to everyone in the room and added, "Not that I can't improve it a bit." So Cameron agreed to co-write and direct the film portion and convinced all the principal actors to return.
If we're going to do a 70mm film based on the Terminator films, let's get Arnold, let's get Eddie, let's get Linda, let's get Robert.
It's Cameron that really motivated me to come here and to do this thing.
He also brought back Stan Winston to provide the animatronic Terminators in the theater and to help with the Terminators in the film. And you can see what attracted Cameron to this project. It's new technology. He shot on 70mm using 2 massive 3D cameras. These things were like 400 pounds. Wait, was this the beginning of his obsession with 3D? Oh, and it doesn't just come off as a cash grab because it's clear Cameron brought the same dedication to this as he does any other film he's made. The man was sweeping the floors, for God's sakes. He was even there for the rehearsals of the live action portion, which required precise timing and choreography to match up with the filmed elements. For that, they built a custom theater with 3 massive screens and then replicated that stage for a rehearsal space. For the film, they found an abandoned iron ore mill and turned it into a massive practical set. There's much more CG this time around, but it's balanced out by an absurd amount of actual explosions. New canonical elements included the T-70, an earlier version of the Terminator, and the outrageously named T-1 million, a massive liquid metal spider that would appear to attack the audience in 3D. According to Cameron, "It's not a rehash of things you've seen. We take John Connor and the Terminator into the future war, an environment they never interacted with in the past films. T2 3D is actually a continuation of the storyline, which makes this an official sequel to Terminator 2. And Cameron and Arnold managed to keep alive their streak of producing outrageously expensive movies by spending $24 million on the film portion of the ride. It's only 12 minutes long, making it one of the most expensive films per minute ever. $2 million per minute to be exact. So let's take a look at T2.5. Before the movie portion, as you go through the line, there are advertisements and cameos from Dr. Silberman and, weirdly, the security guard who yells, "Gibbons?" Then you pick up your 3D glasses just outside the Miles Bennett Dyson Memorial Auditorium. Great little details here. Kimberly Duncan, the director of product development at Cyberdyne, welcomes everyone. It's a very cheeky, over-the-top welcome to Cyberdyne's annual expo, where they're going to show off their latest tech.
It sure is nice to see so many friendly, smiling faces out here today. It looks as though everybody's
She tosses to a sizzle reel that shows off all these great things Cyberdyne's working on.
Imagine a world where butterflies run on batteries.
And some of the tech is actually stuff that's become real here in the future. Then as they start to talk about their incredibly frightening defense systems, some of which have also come true, the feed gets interrupted by Sarah Connor and a post-puberty John.
Skynet is your enemy. It must be destroyed before it destroys us.
Repeat, all civilians in this building have 5 minutes to get out.
Only days after its completion, the Skynet computer will turn against us.
And one of the great mysteries of this ride is how they got B-roll of their own lives. Kimberly tries to downplay that interruption.
Let me take a moment to apologize for that silly interruption.
And then welcomes everyone into the theater. Once in the theater, Kimberly demos their latest tech, the T-70, an early prototype, super cool live action animatronics here. And then the show gets interrupted again live by actors portraying Sarah and John, but actually using Linda Hamilton and Eddie Furlong's voices.
Skynet means the end of everything. Don't you understand?
The T-1000 comes out of the screen, first in 3D and then live in the theater. Apparently it was there the whole time as this Cyberdyne logo. And then here comes the T-800 to massive applause. John jumps on the bike with the T-800.
Come with me if you want to live.
Go with it. He's getting up!
And they drive literally into the screen, which leads us to our filmed portion with the T-800 and John arriving during the future war. It's in 3D. Obviously, you're not going to see that here, but just imagine things coming at you. The T-1000 makes it through the portal, but Sarah doesn't. And if you're wondering, what happened to Sarah? Well,
You're missing the point. As long as she's got ammo, she has to be fighting the T-1000. If she's fighting the T-1000 and we don't see the outcome, and we go into the future, and the next thing we know, the T-1000 comes jumping into the future with us, Sarah's dead.
James Cameron totally killed her.
Sarah's dead.
He killed Sarah Connor. He killed Sarah Connor.
Sarah's dead.
So, for everyone who is mad that Sarah got killed off screen in T3, guess what? The man himself, James Cameron, did it first!
Sarah's dead.
Once John and the T-800 fight off the T-1000, they head towards Skynet, but are pursued by an HK, and it looks awesome. It's never looked better. This shot alone is worth the price of admission. The Terminator does his cool shotgun reload, this time wearing gloves, even though in T2 Arnold said he couldn't wear gloves because they get caught in the gun. I guess he's gotten better at it. The HK releases some drones, which are mini hunters, and the T-800 fights them off, once again finding a cool new way to use his gun. Then we randomly get a kindergarten cop callback?
Stop whining. Stop whining.
Next, they're attacked by a T-800 endoskeleton. Stan Winston's incredible work is on display here. Then, Uncle Bob calls that T-800 a...
Hey, bucket there.
Followed by...
Friend of yours?
He was my college roommate.
Arnold going hard in the paint with the jokes in this one. And they approach Skynet, and then the T-800 says...
Let's bust a move.
Right behind you.
I mean, let's bust a move. Then we cut back to the theater, and it's a combo of live actors and filmed elements. The T-1000 shows up, this big old spider thing. John Peters would be proud.
So anyway, I'm going to meet John Peters, and he's like, I got some directives for you. 1, I don't want to see him in that suit. 2, I don't want to see him fly. And 3, he's got to fight a giant spider in the 3rd act.
They fight it off across 3 giant screens. The Terminator and John share a cute little hug.
I'll be back.
Then the T-800 blows Skynet, and the crowd goes wild. I mean, as a theme park ride, this is the greatest thing ever. It's an entire experience based on my favorite movie, and it's expertly made with Cameron having a big hand in it, seamlessly blending the live action elements with the filmed elements. It's just so fucking cool. But as a continuation of the Terminator story, it's a little thin. You know, aside from that whole killing off a major character off screen thing, like Sarah was Josh Brolin in No Country for Old Men. There's also no explanation as to why the ending of T2 didn't stick, why the T-800 is back and seems to have all the knowledge he gained from his time with Sarah and John, and no explanation how the T-1000 returned in the same form either, since that cop facade was a result of its immediate environment in the movie. It doesn't make sense why it would just be that cop again. So now, the Terminator story, if you're following the Cameron movies, ends with the T-800 gone, the T-1000 gone, the T-1 gone, Skynet gone, Sarah Connor gone, and John Connor now all alone. If you think about it, it's kind of a dark fate. Now, there isn't much nuance to the performances, nor is there much backstory provided as to how this new threat could have risen, mostly because it's a theme park ride and no one's going to sit around listening to exposition for 10 minutes. You could argue Arnold's T-800 is way too funny, something Cameron made sure to temper in T2, but I guess he felt like it could be more over the top since, again, it's a theme park ride. But let's bust a move. One of the weirdest non sequitur lines Arnold has ever had to utter as a Terminator. Now, Eddie Furlong is relegated to yelling most of his lines.
Go left, left. Oh, no, go left, left, left. No, go right, right, I'm sorry. Go right.
John, please stop helping.
The T-1000 is pretty much window dressing, and Sarah doesn't even make it to the film version outside of that transmission interruption prior to the film. Then, and never forget this, she gets unceremoniously murdered just out of view. Right there, there, I can see her. I can see, you can't see her, but I can see her. Oh my God, she's getting murdered. Oh no, that's horrible.
Sarah's dead.
Obviously, you can't compare this to the movies because it's so short and not quite the same medium, but I think I still enjoy this more than Terminator Genesis, if only because the action is so damn good and it's driven by James Cameron. On April 27, 1996, T2 3D Battle Across Time opened in Orlando, Florida, and became a massive success. It then opened in Hollywood's Universal Studios in 1999 and Japan in 2001. The original Orlando one closed many years later on October 9th, 2017, replaced by the Bourne Stuntacular. The one in Hollywood closed in 2013 to make way for a Minions attraction, but Japan's is still running if anyone wants to go and hop on a plane. All right, let's get to the stats. Acting chops, 5. Arnold doesn't really have to do much acting, and he basically just fires off nonstop one-liners. Kill count, I'm going with a 0.5 just so we can get back to a regular number here for a total of 452. Catchphrase, honestly, I don't think any of them are great, so let's just go for sheer absurdity. Let's bust a move. And I'm not going to rank it in the filmography since it's not a feature-length film. It's just going to sit here in the cameos section snugly next to Beretta's Island. Next up, Arnold returns to the big screen proper for his follow-up to Junior that marks the end of Season 2 of Every Arnold Movie Ever, and the end of Arnold's blockbuster era, brought to you by Chuck Russell, the director of the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and also The Mask, which I disparaged in the Junior episode. But hopefully that doesn't happen in this next movie. We'll see you next time for the movie everyone only remembers as the one where Arnold shoots an alligator, Eraser. Sarah's dead, she's so dead. Sarah's dead, Cameron killed her off screen. Sarah's dead, she's been totally fucking murdered. Killed in a theme park ride for family.